What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the channel. For those of you that are new here, my name is Dalton. I ride and race bikes, and today we are finally breaking down Valley of the Sun. This is the Cat 3 Crit from 2022. Now, obviously, guys, I tell you every time, I am not a bike racing expert. So, today, something a little bit unique and a little bit of a new format here. I brought in somebody who does know bike racing, and that's actually my coach, Taylor Warren, with Source Endurance.
Hey, what's going on, man? Thanks for having me on the channel.
No problem, man.
Yeah. Like Dalton said, my name's Taylor Warren. I live in North Park, San Diego. Coach a lot of guys locally here, race on the track, work over at a bike shop in North Park. But yeah, Dalton invited me along to check out his Valley of the Sun crit race video, and we figured we'd have some fun just breaking it down.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. And let them know who you're riding for right now, and then a little bit more about Source Endurance.
Yeah, so I ride for a team called CS Velo. They're out of Philadelphia. We spent all of last year doing the USA Crit Series, so I got a lot of valuable information doing that series. Became like a crit veteran. It was sick. I work with Source Endurance as a coach, and they're based out of Texas, run by Adam Mills. I work with athletes one-on-one, helping them design a custom training plan, figuring out their race schedule, and just really like helping them plan the training around their busy life schedule.
Right on. All right, guys. So, like I said, brought him in to talk race tactics and all other things. So, first thing is first, we're going to go ahead and talk about kind of the race details, right? So, obviously, like I said, this is Valley of the Sun 2022. This is the crit. So, it's a figure 8 style course. There's a chicane. I think it's about a mile long, as most, crit courses are. Not a lot of wind. This is pretty much protected by all the buildings downtown. And so I guess what I'll explain to you first is just kind of our team plan. So in this race we had Adam, who you know, Zach, and then myself. And so the general idea here was that we wanted this to be a field sprint, right? The previous 2 days, since it's a stage race, kind of had us cooked. The TT, obviously, we all went all out for that. So my legs were toast, Zach's legs were toast, and Adam was pretty toast too. First TT for most of us. And so then after that, we had the 80-mile road race, and that was just like a war of attrition in the wind. So something that, obviously we noticed about ourselves is we were toast. So we were probably going to be trying to sit in as much as possible. Nobody was going to ride a break that day. I don't think any of us had the legs for it. So the general idea was, if it comes to a field sprint, which we thought it would because it was such a fast course, then we were hoping that Adam could basically get me out of the chicanes about halfway down the back straight, and then that's basically coming into 2 corners to go. Mm-hmm. And then after that, I would basically take over about halfway down that straight, get us through the second to last corner, hopefully through the last corner, sprint half of like the sprint straight, because I think it was almost like 400-meter sprint.
Yeah, it's a long sprint.
And then, from there, Zach can just open up whatever he has left, which is, like 1,200 watts for 30 seconds or some ridiculousness. So that was kind of our plan. I don't know if you have any comments on the plan. Maybe it was a good idea, but maybe not.
Yeah, I mean, that crit usually ends in a field sprint. Okay. I think the course is like really conducive to field sprint. But yeah, like you said, like you guys are toast, and if you guys are toast, like probably a lot of people are toast as well. So you get a strong group of guys up the front, and maybe they can stay away. So it's always unpredictable.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess, what we'll do here is we'll just kind of start at the beginning and then walk our way through the whole thing. And then, yeah, I mean, if you guys like this, let us know in the comments below if you want to see more stuff like this. Plan to bring Taylor on for more stuff like this, maybe some training tips, nutrition, and whatever else that you have to offer. And then, definitely talking through this stuff. Bro. All right, well, without further ado, it looks like the cat has joined the party, so let's go ahead and dive into some crit racing. All right, so, jumping forward here, kind of the first thing that I noticed myself in the middle of the race was sort of just, like, I was sitting towards the back in the beginning, thinking that maybe that was a good idea because nothing was going to go early, so maybe, like, now would be time to kind of just chill out until everything settled in. What I realized, though, is that stuff was really not settling down, so I was, like, finally deciding, I gotta move up. And I think, you can probably notice here too, like all my early cornering was pretty terrible. Like you can see I'm losing wheels here at 5 minutes and something into the race, 6 minutes into the race. But then finally, I kind of started taking corners a little bit better, realizing that it was time to get to the front, or at least the top 20 wheels or whatever. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on my position early in the race?
I mean, I'm a big fan of like having a really good hard start. Just because even if nothing's going on and the race is super chill, at least you're there and you don't have to use the energy later to move up there. And like in my opinion too, it's like crits have this like U-shaped curve where it's like the beginning is super hot, everyone's fighting for position. Brakes can go, they usually don't, but like you get a really good feel for the race at the very beginning. And then there's kind of this lull in the middle where either the brake is established and people have kind of sat up a little bit, or people are just tired and they don't want to ride as hard. And then typically that crescendos into the last half of the race where like a real attempt for a break goes or the pace picks up for a field sprint.
Okay.
So I think getting a really good start is like, it's just an easy way to save some energy at the beginning. And even if it's not necessary, like nothing's going to happen right away, it's still just like, it's a good starting point. It puts you on a good mentality. It helps you maybe pick your own lines a little bit. Because I'm the same way where it takes me like 3 or 4 laps to really get like the flow of the course. You know where the good lines
Having
are.
never ridden this course either, like we didn't.
Yeah,
it's
for
not
sure.
like we warmed up on the course.
And every course is completely different. It's not like you've raced this course like last week or anything. So you have to learn how to ride the fastest lines pretty much on the fly. And like it takes 5 or 6 laps. You're not going to learn it like immediately. Some corners it's going to be better to take the inside. Some are better to take the outside. So I think if you're towards the front or like pretty close to the front, you have more freedom to kind of pick and choose your own lines, and it might help you just get a feel for the course a little bit easier. And then it's also just really good practice when you do come into a crit where like there's a feature that's going to break the race up immediately. Like a lot of crits with hills, if you don't start at the front, you're going to get shelled like halfway through the race just because it's so much harder at the back and you don't necessarily get that lull to like move up to the front.
I think that's kind of what I started to realize too, is like, sitting in the back here, I was thinking that would be easier, but then I was taking kind of funky lines like you were mentioning, right? And so like not choosing my own lines and figuring out the fastest line, I'm kind of at the mercy of everybody else. So what I realized pretty quickly is I was just like, there was no way of getting around popping at like 600-700 watts out of every corner. Yeah. And I knew that wasn't sustainable for me right now with like 0 VO2 training or anything in my legs. And like 2 races under my belt, both in the same day in CBR. So I think that's a good point, and definitely like I usually line up at the front, but for some reason I think mentally I was just like in Spaceland or something.
Yeah, and like I think there's always this like desire that the race kind of unfolds slowly and you get like a chance to kind of breathe in the beginning and get into the flow of it. But yeah, crits are never like that. People are like keyed up and ready to go from the start.
Speaking of too, in this particular crit, I guess that's a good segue into what's happening right here. So we're at 9 minutes and like 10 seconds into the race, and you already can see through these corners, we've got 3 or 4 guys already off the front, right?
Yeah.
And this race has been strung out since the beginning and hasn't let up. So spoiler alert, this is actually the brake that gets established and it sticks. So, in my head, I'm seeing these guys go up the road and I'm like, that's probably not a big deal. That there's no way that's going to stick. We're hauling butt. We're averaging 28 miles an hour, 29 miles an hour so far. Like, in order for them to drive that speed, they're going to be having to work extremely hard.
Yeah.
Little did I know that it was actually the guy, the GC leader who rode away from the road race, another guy who rode away from the TT by like 2.5 minutes. Literally all the strongest dudes in the race were in that move.
Yeah, so it's like if it's the right combination, they're working well together, it'll go because they're stronger than everyone else chasing, right? Yeah. Unless there's like, if there's 4 guys up the road, maybe 6 or 7 guys that are not as strong could bring them back, but they'd have to be really organized, and you don't really see that much at like the Cat 3 level. It's like, how many teams of 7 guys are there even,
Now, we had teammates in here, right? There's 3 of us, so what are your thoughts on us getting organized on the front, right? Is this become our responsibility as 3 teammates to get up there and just drill it and try and bring them back? I mean, it's early race, so we're thinking, with the pace this hot, maybe we don't need to do that, or is this somewhere where you're like, if you really want it to be a field sprint, you got to get to the front and get organized?
Yeah, I mean, that's really hard. It's like, you have to have the firepower to really dictate your plan. I think the responsibility of chasing lies on the teams that have the like highest GC positions. They want to maintain those positions.
Yeah.
So if there's a guy in the break that's like, say, in 4th place, and he's going to leapfrog the dude in 3rd place, and the dude in 3rd place has teammates, I'd say it's the responsibility of that team to take up the lead, take up the charge at least. And then you could maybe send a teammate or two to like help them with that, because you both have the same goal in mind.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, again, what I was saying is like it's harder to find at the low levels. It's just like you don't see quite as much organization. That might be due to like people not really having much teammates at all too.
Yeah.
So you really can't rely on anyone to help you bring that move back. I think what needed to happen really was you guys should have had someone towards the front trying to cover stuff like that.
Yeah. When the move went, we should have been in position to go with it.
Yeah. And if there's like a guy that's like maybe the designated sprinter, maybe he's sitting on more, and there's a guy that's not necessarily sprinting for the win, when he can be the one that's like trying to go with potentially dangerous moves.
Okay.
And if you're not strong enough to stay in there, you just sit on, and if the move works, you're fresh, and if the move doesn't work, you've still done your job of coming down to field sprint.
Okay. Yeah, so ideally, and that's a concept that I've seen a lot of people do, right, is like everybody's, if you are wanting it to come to a field sprint, you're not going to work with the move, right? So you're just going to sit on the back of that thing, and you're going to hope, really, that it gets caught, and then your sprinter is going to be fresh, right?
Yeah.
Because the idea is, like, if you're represented and you're in the move, then other people, hypothetically, are chasing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you
people getting in my way, man.
Yeah, that happens a lot in crits. It's annoying.
That's just me out of position, so...
Yeah, and if that break doesn't come in back and you've been sitting on all day, even if you're like the weakest dude, you haven't taken a single pull, you're like probably gonna smoke everyone on the move.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean this is a big defining moment, right, in the race. So this is just kind of the break getting established, and you can see it's still strung out, and I don't think that they're just not coming back. So one thing, I guess, we do make kind of a feeble attempt here in just a second. I think at like 16 minutes, right? So let's jump ahead here, and I'll show you kind of my only, I finally started moving up. I had moved up a little bit before, but then obviously I got shuffled back, kind of the washing machine effect. And this is a smaller field. There's like, I think 40 of us, but at 14 minutes and some change, 14:45, I finally am like pushing to the front with Luke with Bicycle House. That's a good wheel and a good opportunity to get up there, but that actually set me up for kind of the next spot, which I think is probably my only attempt at maybe getting across, and I think that maybe they were just too far out of reach, but so coming through the chicane here, 15 minutes into the race, almost 16 minutes into the race, and then coming out of the chicane, you'll see the Bicycle House guy, who's actually, he's super strong, and I think he might have been like an ex-rower or something. And so he's just naturally coming in with a lot of fitness. He blew through Cat 4, and he just steamrolls by, but I heard it. And so I jump on his wheel, and I'm just trying to move up with him, but then he stomps on it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yep, going there. So how far do you think the break is at the moment?
So I think that at the line, like the last 2 laps, they were saying they had about 10 seconds.
Okay. So they're still within reach. I'd say that gap is bridgeable if you are able to maybe come off a wheel really hot and do like just a huge hero effort. It's definitely going to take a lot. But yeah, I'd say going with him.
I was doing 400 watts just trying to maintain his wheel, right?
Yeah.
And like I don't have the fitness to bridge by myself, definitely, and I don't even know. So I look back here, right, and I realize that like, hey, the whole peloton is attached, and maybe that was because the other Bicycle House guy was attached to my wheel, and then I was attached to the guy in front of him. So it kind of made it one bike length longer. Maybe if the guy behind me would have sat up, that would have allowed us to kind of get a little more separation. Then I would have probably worked with him. But I don't see any point in working with him when, we're caught by the group. I don't want to bring the whole group back. I guess maybe if I would have continued to work a little bit, we would have been able to bring the break back, but I guess my mentality was bridge, not bring it back. So maybe that's a bad mentality.
We would have had to work at the front, and then probably another one of your teammates would have had to go across once the gap came a little bit closer.
Because I'd be toast type of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I was, 180 BPM already.
Yeah, and like the dude that made that bridge attempt, it's like he was either going to get to the break in the 30 seconds he did that sprint, or he wasn't. And if he wasn't going to get there, then that effort is kind of just done at that point. So you either have to come off his wheel, probably going just as hard as he was, and keep that effort going for another like half a lap to a full lap, or like it's even hard to chase in that moment too because everyone's gassed because they just sprinted super hard to try to stay with this dude.
Yeah.
So it's like those moments are, it's kind of like a do or die. Like you're gonna get to the break or you're not, and it's like if you don't get there, it's gonna probably give the advantage more to the break than otherwise.
I mean, yeah, we're all sitting up now. Like, it stayed single file for a bit after that, but I mean, everybody's kind of dying out. And so one thing that I've done in the past that I think I was a little bit more happy with now is, you know, I've typically filtered back much further in the pack after, like, you know, being off the front like that or following a move or something along those lines. I'll typically filter back further, which has been kind of like, you know, my Achilles heel because I'm not in position to follow the next thing that goes. And so, I slotted in here, I think, kind of mid-pack or a little bit closer to the front end of things, so I was kind of happy with that. But then, you know, it's crazy because that next attack went that you saw, and suddenly I'm, like, in the back again, and I'm out of position to follow anything. So, you know, I think this is where, as a team, right, like, we all kind of need to be shuffling position towards the front as much as possible, right?
Yeah.
You don't riding as an individual, what do you do?
Yeah, and it's not like you need all three of you at the front all the time, but at least having someone represented who's kind of able to see what's going on and can either follow moves or relay information back to other teammates. I mean, everything's going to be easier if you're always together. That's like the preferred way to ride, just because holding position is way easier.
Yeah.
If you got like three of your guys lined out across the road, you're like essentially maintaining a bubble of space, and it allows you to move a little bit more freely through the field. People aren't necessarily trying to like jump on the wheels. So it always makes things easier to ride with a teammate, but it's, you know, pretty chaotic and hectic most of the time, so it takes a lot of like practice to be able to do that.
Okay. One thing I noticed too is, you know, and I'll try and do this a lot, is like, I'll notice when one of us is sitting in the wind, and it's always easier to get back in the group when somebody's with you, right? So that's been like my key takeaway. But I mean, as you can see, like, I think Adam and I here, we're so far back, and we're 20 minutes into the race now, and maybe this is part of that U shape that you're talking about, but I mean, we're still strung out. This thing didn't mellow down. We averaged like 28.1 the whole race.
Yeah, this is a super fast course. There's not a lot of like spots to really scrub speed.
Yeah.
So this one typically stays fast, and you'd think that that's a good reason for it to come down to a field sprint, but if it's like just a group of dudes that are super strong, there's definitely a chance they could stay away.
Here was kind of free watts, you know, I mean, like I said, we're 20 minutes and some change into the race, and you know, that was an easy opportunity to move up, and you can see not a lot of people behind me are necessarily trying to jump around, so it was kind of an easy time to slot in. And every time I did move to the front and slot in, I would see the same group of individuals, right? So it's just, you know, we're all going to be toast at the end of this thing, like just drill in the front the whole time, I think.
But that's a super good moment to like recognize. So it's like every time you feel a little bit of a lull, instead of like staying with the lull, you just keep your momentum going and slot into the front. It's a free ride, like you said.
And it only cost me 200 watts, right? And plenty strong at this point, even on this fitness, which was like nothing, right? No threshold efforts yet. You know, I think I was plenty strong enough to do 200 watts and move up, and that was fine. Right there, you know, I did like 950 watts. I think I thought I was going to attack across the front of this thing, and then I sort of stuck my nose out there and realized that maybe that wasn't the move. But then this guy goes, and so, you know, it's like you said, I think before, is like, how far is the break, right? I mean, is this worth trying? And so I think I quickly realized that, like, you know, my heart rate's pegged. I don't have the fitness yet to be able to get across to that. Maybe later season, of course, but not right now, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, I mean, it really helps to like get a time gap every lap, just so you can realize kind of what's going on in the race. Like, is the gap going out? Like, the brake is riding faster than the group?
Yeah.
Is the brake coming back, or is like the gap maintaining the time? And that gives you kind of a sense of like how fast you're riding in relation to the brake, if it's possible to even bring the brake back the way they're riding.
And I think, you know, at their peak, they only had 29 seconds on us. So, I mean, in a course, like on a course this fast, I guess it's probably a lot, right? I don't really know how to judge that because, you know, they had 10 seconds for a really long time, and that was fine. But then once they got that 29-second gap, I think that everybody kind of was like, oh, they're gone.
Yeah, I mean, you can like break it down to the physics of it. Like a 20-second gap is probably like about 400, 500 meters. And so to bridge across like a 500-meter gap, and the guys are probably pulling at like 350, 400 watts, you're doing like 600 watts for like, I don't know, 2-3 minutes to get across that.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah, so you like,
not by myself anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like you need to have a pretty established chase, and you need to be going faster than the brake is going to bring the gap back.
Okay. So, I mean, your thoughts here, right? I mean, we're 23 minutes into this. The whole race is only a 40-minute crit, right? So, at this point, would you write the break off as gone, or would you just continue, like, or would you try and do something about it?
Yeah, I mean, like, again, that probably goes down to, like, your team situation, how your guys are feeling, if you guys are even able to get to the front or organize. So that's, like, first of all, like, can you dictate the outcome of the race? And then, secondly, like, should you, or is it a good moment to? I mean, I think if you had the firepower and you wanted the break to come back, like, yeah, put 3 guys on the front and rotate through until the gap comes down. But if you guys realize, like, that's not feasible, then I think you have to kind of put the pressure on other people to chase, and then basically hope that gap comes down to the point where it's either bridgeable for one of you guys, or you just start to organize to set up someone for a field sprint.
Okay. Well, speaking of organizing and set it up for the field sprint, let's jump ahead a little bit. I think we kind of start, getting the hang of things somewhere around the 30-minute mark. But let me. So here we go. 27 minutes and 30 seconds. I'm finally pushing myself up here a little bit, and I think my goal, at this point in the race, I think we're coming through with 7 to go, and at this point, I'm just trying to make sure that I'm near 5. Okay, so we've got 5 laps to go at 27:50, and so I think my goal here is just to sort of be near everybody else, right? So I see Zach up ahead, and Adam's up there as well. And so now I'm just trying to make sure that we kind of stay together. Adam was kind of slipping back, and so Zach is who we're setting up. So one thing that, I kind of learned last year in Cat 4 is it's not necessarily my responsibility to go back and get people, right? I think the general idea is when you're setting up a lead out, and the way that I understand it currently is that when you're setting something up like this, you have to get to the front and get in position, and then everybody kind of forms together once you're all at the front and you've made your effort to get up there, right?
Yeah, ideally. I mean, if you're in a good position and your teammate's out of position or in a bad position, it's kind of their responsibility to get to you and to be in a good position, right? And yeah, it just makes everything harder to come back in the field and make a big push together to get to the front.
So do you think my effort here, to move up was maybe too hard too soon, or did I, was it a decent enough measurable effort to the guy goes off the course right there,
and he goes going on with that?
Screaming left, and I was just screaming expletives, but yeah, he just goes wild and takes a left, and the whole peloton jogs left, and it's ugh!
That's so funny.
That was a nail biter.
He forgot he had the oven on or something.
Yeah. He's or he's just done. Yeah, he's you know what, I'm done with this thing. Somebody was maybe he wasn't in our race.
Yeah, he's this is my field.
Yeah. He's oh dude, I was just, warming up and y'all came up here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so weird moments. But anyway, back to it, I guess. I mean, we're coming into 4 to go. Now I've slotted in front of Zach here, I think. And so I basically told Zach there, I was hey, now it's time, get on my wheel and let's do it, right? Because my thought process coming into 4 to go is that I just need to be keeping Zach, I just need to keep his wheels clean. And that's my overall idea, right? Is I just want him on my wheel the whole time, and if anything starts to swarm, just keep him kind of at the pointy end of the swarm, and make sure he doesn't end up getting boxed or anything like that. So I don't know what your thoughts are. Is that the right approach?
Yeah, I mean, you're trying to protect the line that you're on, so he has a clean line. Trying to keep him towards the front. If you guys get pushed too far back, it's kind of on you to get into the wind a little bit and move you guys both up. Because ultimately you're burning the energy, so he has it at the end. I'd say maybe committing to a certain side of the road, or a certain inside outside line, depending on the course, and kind of coordinating that and sticking to one side or the other until it gets really strung out is a good strategy. But yeah, there's also the saying that goes if you're not moving up, you're moving back.
Yeah.
So constantly be thinking about that swarm that wants to take your position.
And so there, people are attacking, and it got super, super strung out for a little bit. And so I didn't actually do a lot of work there. I was hanging in the draft pretty well, and this was always the opportunity I found to kind of move up. And sure enough, everybody's sitting up. So, I was taking this as an opportunity. I thought, honestly, Zach was still on my wheel, right? Because we've got 5 to go. Or 3, we're coming into 3 to go. And so I look back, I don't even think I looked back, you know, because in my head I'm just like forward, forward, forward.
Yeah.
I mean, is that the right mentality, right? Because like the idea is Zach's gonna find his way back to my wheel, right?
I mean, ideally he would, but I think when you're riding for someone like in the finish of a crit, you need to be really conscious of you have a teammate on your wheel and you can't necessarily squeeze through every gap.
Okay.
Because like if you see a small gap and you shoot through and the gap closes, then your guy's like, well, now I'm back here, and then it might take a while to reconnect again. But like,
that means he has to do hard efforts too.
Yeah, exactly. He's gonna probably have to do a sprint effort to get back to your wheel, to get back in position. I think the best way to go about it is the teammate that is on your wheel, he's constantly letting you know he's there.
Yeah.
So he's telling you,
even just yep.
Yeah, he's telling you like still here, or he's like telling you what's kind of happening from behind, like telling you to move up a little bit because he can feel the surge a little bit sooner than you can.
Faster, slower, like, you know, yeah.
Or like move left, move right, because he can see people are coming up on the inside, coming up on the outside. So the person on your wheel is kind of responsible for like telling you where to go, essentially, and you're making the space and making it burning the energy to get him there.
That keeps our position in our optimal line through the corners too, right? And I think that's where, you know, I kind of always default to the inside, and so finally Zach's getting back to my wheel, right, and he's able to push this guy off, and so I kind of always default to the inside because I think, you know, in my head, if I close the door, the only person that's gonna be on my outside, or if I leave one slot on the inside, he can kind of half wheel up with the inside on me, and then that allows him to not have to do a hard effort and then kind of slinky back on my wheel out of the corner.
That's usually preferred if you're like riding with a teammate. You can like basically close the door on anyone except for him.
Yeah.
And then, unless the corner is too fast to take the inside, essentially, if you can carry more speed on the outside. But like, yeah, inside's probably preferred. So
right here, right, you know, we're 33 minutes in, and this guy, I skip my wheel super nasty right there on the wheel arrow. But you know, this late move, I've seen it so many times happen with like 3 to go. That brake goes and sticks. And so in my head, like I see this, right, and there are like 4 guys off the front here. One of them is Bicycle House, and so my concern is that they're gonna get away and their teammates are gonna sit up in the front of the field and kind of let this happen. So I kind of burn a match to stomp on it, and maybe that didn't help Zach any. Maybe I should have like slowly ramped that up and brought it back, but at the same time I felt like if I didn't cover this, like alarm bells are going off, because I've seen it so many times where the 3 to go break is like the break. Yeah, I mean, that was probably the right call. I think it's either you're gonna burn a match in doing that effort, or like, yeah, Zach might have to burn a match if they do look like they're working together well and he's got to get across to it. I mean, ideally you always have someone else do the work for you, but yeah, in those kind of moments where, and I kind of was trying to stay on that stage 2 rider's wheel. Obviously I skipped my wheel, so I sat down real quick, but you know, otherwise I would have tried to stay on his wheel, I think. But then I realized I could carry momentum through the corner and it wasn't going to be too bad. The most dangerous thing about following that move was just the swarm that happened afterwards. So it's like that attack went, you kind of welded the group back together, and then once the group's back together, there's a lull, so the people from behind are using the momentum to come over the top and swarm you guys. So it's like thinking about that situation where sometimes in that moment, even if you're gassed, you might have to push a little bit harder once the group is welded together, just to keep you guys ahead of the swarm. Because I think right here is the moment you guys got pushed a little bit too far back, ideally, where if you would have maintained position coming into like 1 to go, for instance, you were in the top 5 wheels, you wouldn't have had to do like a big effort to get back to the front. Yeah, and realistically, if you look at Bicycle House, right, I was like on that wheel, and if you look at it, I mean, there are 7, 8 wheels in front of me right now, and if I would have just maintained that wheel and that momentum, the official goes screaming like, but if I would have maintained that momentum, you know, coming into 1 to go, I'd be sitting 6th wheel right now. Zach would be sitting 7th wheel, instead of like all the way back here. What are we, like probably 15th or something? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Like, 15th or 20th in there somewhere. You know, it's strung out, but that's almost worse in my head. Like, I don't know, because if it's strung out, you have so much further to get to the front. Yeah, exactly. If it was like balled up at the front, 15th wheel, you might not be so bad, but you're coming into 1 to go, it's going to be super strung out. You're going to have to pass essentially a line of 15 guys in the sprint. Which I'm kind of doing there. And I thought I did that a pretty measured effort. I mean, I just kind of put it up at like 400 watts. But Zach kind of has to burn a match behind me to maintain and like get back on. So I was a little bit concerned about that. But I didn't realize in my head that he wasn't there. I just thought that he was still on the wheel.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a measured effort, but I mean, this last lap, I mean, I'm constantly at 400 or 500 watts just to maintain our position.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, you got guys in front of you going all out because they're either trying to win the race or they're trying to set up someone to win the race. So it's like, usually in the USA Crit races I was doing, there was a saying that was where you are with about 10 laps to go is basically where you're going to finish.
Okay.
I think for Cat 3, maybe you can break that down to like last 2 or 3 laps, not quite as far out.
People still die, right?
Yeah, exactly. People still die in front of you, but ideally you're coming into that last lap like 5th to 7th wheel or so.
So there's chicane here. I push to the outside to try and make sure nobody dives me on the median, and I want to protect Zach, so I don't want anybody to dive him. So I take that all the way there, and then coming into this final straight, I mean, you've seen this, right? What's your thoughts on the way I handled this, right? Like I came out of that corner pretty hard at 900 watts, and this guy attacks off to the right. I couldn't figure out which side. I think I kind of was indecisive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I saw that Zach wasn't on your wheel, so that wasn't ideal, but I think if he was on your wheel and you could have gone with the guy in the red, that would have set Zach up perfectly to win the field sprint. Because the guy in the red, he leads through the last 2 corners.
And I died right here.
Yeah, like basically you like half went with him, half didn't, and then couldn't find the momentum to get on the train that was passing you.
Yeah. And here it's gapped, and Zach still manages to sprint off my wheel. So Zach takes, I think, 6th or 7th in the field sprint, which is basically just behind that small group of people up front.
Yeah.
He took like 11th or 12th overall. I mean, my job's done here, so I'm just sitting up. But so I mean, the end of that, right? If we like rewind it, just like I don't know, to kind of those last 2 corners, right? Maybe I guess we should have been further up, right?
Yeah, further up like allows you not to like have to panic and burn a match to get to the front in the first place. But yeah, sometimes you're not there, and on this course you can kind of recover it with this long straightaway. If you would have just jumped straight right and got on that dude's wheel,
followed it
all the way, and tried to lead the corner. Yeah, second wheel.
So I die right here. You can just see it. Like I just crater, right? And so they come by me with like 2 miles an hour, and I dropped like 100 watts. And I don't know why I just completely let off the gas. Probably just honestly dead.
Yeah, it was like you did that hard move with 3 to go. That probably burned a good match for this finishing effort.
Yeah. And here maybe Zach should have already been coming around me and been able to jump on that train.
Yeah, I mean, him not being on your wheel, it's like he just wasn't in a good position to win the field sprint where he was, and like your job was to lead him out, so it's hard to like you're gonna race the race differently if you're a lead out guy versus you're the guy sprinting for the line of the finish.
Yeah. Everybody's still sprinting by me right here. It's just amazing. Yeah, so I mean, overall, I don't know, it was kind of a unique experience, but having your insight is definitely good because I think there are a lot of like small critiques definitely throughout the whole thing where it's like we could have improved ourselves and been, either done something about that break, but at the same time, I don't know. Do you think that there was anything we could have done about that, or were they just too strong? Like,
I think you would have had to react way faster than you guys did. Like,
so being at the front in the first place.
Yeah, it's like when the break goes, if you know who's in it, and you're like, oh man, these dudes are the strongest dudes in the race. It's like that's the moment to be like, okay, we need a bridge now, or like bring it back now.
Okay. And it has to happen as soon as it goes, right? Or
it doesn't happen as soon as it goes, but if you're at the front, you can realize what's happening, so you can make that call like much sooner within the lap or 2.
Okay. Yeah, that's one of my key takeaways, and then obviously, so positioning myself at the beginning to be in a better position to get to that break or bring it back or make those decisions even and realize what's going on, and then obviously stop cornering like trash in the beginning. And then, later in the race, I think this is something that we've kind of seen, like, as a team repeat, is just when we're setting ourselves up and getting in position a couple times, I've burned that match too early now. Mm-hmm. And so I think, regardless of who's leading who out, I think, utilizing other people to burn out before us, right? And understanding which trains are going to accelerate and maybe a little bit of patience.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely takes a lot of practice and patience and just figuring out how to get to the front and then stay there. Like basically going when the swarm comes is super difficult. Yeah, and just having your teammates around you will make that a little bit easier.
Okay. One of the big things too that, you know, I noticed after the fact is like where I died sort of was about the distance that I thought I had in the tank. So, you know, Adam burned a match earlier on, I think with like 5 to go to sort of move me up to get closer to Zach. So Adam was kind of toast. And so then, you know, towards the end, we didn't have Adam to basically lead that back straight like we had planned. And so maybe, you know, my thought was if we had had him to get me halfway down that straight, I could have popped off his wheel like I did out of the chicane, and then ideally gotten us through those last 2 corners, at least level with the bicycle house guys.
Yeah.
Because they took the field sprint.
Yeah, if you're like going for the lead out, the place to be for you would have been leading through the last 2 corners.
Okay.
Ideally with Zach on your wheel.
Yeah. And so realistically, even so, I guess, you know, in a situation like that, when sort of, you know, your team plan doesn't really go as you thought it would, right? Or you lose a guy, do you just try and stay in line longer?
Yeah, I would say just stay in line longer. Just maintain your position, and then at least you're saving the energy before the sprint really opens up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll let you in on a secret. The team plan never goes to plan. Like, it's almost better.
Don't tell anybody.
It's almost better to have like team roles than like a plan of like this guy's gonna do this at this point, because like the race starts and everything goes out the window immediately.
It's all good till you get punched in the face, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, I think that's probably a good note to end it on. Now you've got all Taylor's secrets, but appreciate you know, jumping on with me and talking through this stuff, and you know, give me a way more experienced perspective than what I'm gonna have, and hopefully all these folks learn something too. But yeah, I mean, overall, we're getting better and better as we go. So I think that, you know, reflecting on all this stuff is really gonna help us late season.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it takes a while to get it dialed. This is just practice.
Right on.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Well, guys, if you want to see more of this, like I said, let us know in the comments below. If you guys want to see some more crit racing, I'll put a race over Taylor's face. And then you can check out that video too. All right, guys. Take care.